Yes, and hello, and welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast. My name is Connor Moran, and this is your podcast for season 2026. Today is the 2nd of January, 2026, and I am getting rugby league withdrawals. I am really struggling through this off season. I feel that with a really disappointing NRL tipping season last year, and even in NRL fantasy draft, I won that comp with my friends, but the one with other friends of just classic teams that were interested in doing that, I really struggled in. So it wasn't a successful year for people like myself who support Manly, New South Wales, even Australia. Obviously, I go for Australia, but I thought that Ashes series was really underwhelming. So for season 2025, there wasn't overly much to cheer about in that year. And I remember in season 2023, Queensland win that Origin and Manly missed out on the finals again. And I remember that off season just being so hungry to win tipping competitions or win fantasies and win competitions with mates because I feel like it's just something you get this adrenaline rush when the rugby league's back, and yeah, it's just a great escape for people. I think that's the great thing about rugby league too, is it brings everybody together. And as I've mentioned before on this podcast, that's something that I try and aim to do, is to create the rugby league forecast community where I share my opinions and my thoughts. And I don't necessarily want you to always agree with me either. I really want you guys to have a big say in this podcast. I want you guys to feel as though you can leave comments, disagree, as long as everyone's nice and polite to each other while letting a difference of opinion be known. Then I think we could create really something really special. And I say we because sure, I might be the one talking behind the microphone, but I really want you guys to engage in this podcast community and feel as though this is your rugby league platform and rugby league to know upcoming news, and basically just a bit of a rundown of season 2026. Um, we're 5 weeks away from NRL trials, and that preseason challenge, a lot of people don't take it too seriously and whatnot. But if you're a rugby league tipster like myself, who loves tipping competitions, and a rugby league nerd who loves to watch the young guns coming through, I think it's a really good opportunity to sit down for 3 weekends and watch what is going to happen in those trials. Not necessarily about who's going to win the preseason challenge and the $100,000 prize, but to see those younger guns coming up through each side. And I think week 3 for me of the preseason challenges are really interesting, and that's whether or not you're just a rugby league fan in general who don't do NRL fantasy or tipping, or super coach or any of those competitions. But it's just really interesting because most of the squads in week 3 of preseason challenges are basically who they're gonna run out for round 1, and it's a really good opportunity for those young guns to come up. So me as a Manly Sea Eagles tragic, for me Joey Walsh is. I want to see him perform in the trials. I'd love to see him play in the number 7 jersey. And if I think Ontani Large is going to be in the proper 30-man squad for Manly, I'm pretty sure. Because he was 17 last year. So if he's 18, if he's in the 6 and Joey Walsh is in the 7 for the trials, as a Manly fan, I am really intrigued to see that combination, because I think those two are the long-term um, successful partnership halves combination for Manly that they will need to prioritise for many, many years to come. The DCE Trbojevic era, I feel it's ending, and there wasn't overly too much success through those three boys. At the club, unfortunately, we didn't win a comp with Cherry Evans since 2011, but when Jake came in 2014 and Tom came in 2015, from that 10-year period, we haven't seen overly much of consistent success for Manly. So, players for the Broncos as well. I want to see. I want to see many players perform and step up, and especially players like Xavier Willison, who sure he plays first grade every week, but it's an opportunity for players like Xavier Willison to start. Jonah Pezzett won't be at the Broncos until 2027, but Just a couple of those younger halves to perform. What are they going to do? Are they going to play Ben Hunt at 5'8"? Are they going to play Ben Hunt at hooker? Well, I reckon week 3 of the trials, I reckon we'll have a good indication of where people are playing at in each position at each side. But basically, the podcast today, I just want to go through round 1, and I know we're 7-8 weeks away from kickoff, but it'll fly by. It'll absolutely fly by. And I just get the sense that if you're a rugby league tipper who takes your tipping competitions extremely seriously, or just a rugby league nerd who wants to win, then this is the podcast to listen to. And I feel that it's really important that it's a bit like a head coach in a playing group going into the rugby league season. If you take tipping comp seriously, I reckon you want to have some sort of a plan of how to win and how to and how to win competitions. And that's basically staying at a level head. And it doesn't necessarily mean tipping the favourites every week, but I think if you can set out a plan of perhaps trying to get at least 6 out of 8 every week, and I know that's an extremely high number, really, and possibly unrealistic. But if that's your aim every week, then look at it like your tipping name or your tipping team gets the 2 points for the week. You get the win, So if you can consistently get at least 6 out of 8 every week in the tipping, which is almost impossible to do, I understand. But you're going to do pretty well. So you want to have a bit of a game plan. And round 1, as I mentioned, Sunday, March the 1st, of 2026, that's kickoff. Today's the 2nd of January. So sure, we've got a little bit of time to go, but I reckon you probably want to have a bit of a game plan of how you're going to start the season as a tipper. And I'm going to go through round 1 and the fixtures of round 1 and who I'm going to currently tip at this point in time. Obviously, the squad announcements won't be named until Team List Tuesday the week before, which will be late February for those Vegas games. But I want to talk about the Vegas games quickly. So the Newcastle Knights got the wooden spoon last year, and they will be taking on the Cowboys. That will be the first game of the 2026 season. And for me, that's going to be really important for both sides to start off well, considering they both didn't make the 8 last year. And then you've got the Canterbury Bulldogs against the Dragons. That will be the final game. And then there will be a men's Super League game as well in there. So last year, there were the 4 fixtures in the 2025 Vegas experience, but this year there's 3, and I think even Peter V'landys and Andrew Abdo admitted while they were in Vegas last year that 4 was too many. So there will be a Super League game in there as well. I think Hull FC, who won the tipping comp with Willie, not the tipping comp, who won the Super League Premiership with Willie Peters as head coach. I'm pretty sure they are playing. If I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. But pretty sure I heard that on the radio the other day. I'm not sure who they're versing. I'm not overly across the Super League, unfortunately. I mainly just focus on the NRL. But let's talk about the Knights and Cowboys game. That's going to be really intriguing to see certain players in certain positions of where they're going to play. So fullback for me, Scott Drinkwater will be the fullback for the Cowboys. You'd assume Tom Dearden will be the 7. Really interesting which way they're going to go in the 6, and I think that's a really good opportunity for both Jake Clifford and Jackson Purdue in the preseason challenge to see who will get that number 6 jersey. There are so many players. Jason Tomalolo, will he start? There's no Jordan McLean now. He played a lot of the last couple of years for the Cowboys off the bench, but there were some games where he started. But what do they do with Jason Tomalolo? Does he start in the 13 jersey and just let him play 30 minutes and bring him back on for the last 10? Does he come off the bench? Does he start as a front rower? It's really intriguing to see which direction Todd Payten will go, because at the end of the day, they are extremely desperate to start the season well, considering how poorly they started last year, getting absolutely belted by Manly at Brookie Oval round 1, and they had about 40 odd points put on them. And then against the Sharks round 2, they got beaten up in Townsville. So it's going to be really intriguing to see which direction Todd Payten goes. Really, in my opinion, I think the Cowboys are going to win this game and win it really well. That's just my opinion. And look, I'll probably be wrong. Look, I'll just put my predictions out there. We'll watch the Vegas games and Knights will win 13+. But I genuinely believe that the Cowboys have the have the capability of being the most improved side in 2026 that no one will see coming. Sure, people will have them in their 8. And, Reece Robson's a big loss. We can't underestimate that. But Reed Marnie is a fantastic hooker. For me, he's in the top 5 hookers of the NRL. And, that Reece Robson to me is probably just a better player, but not by much. I think Reece Robson is an incredible defender, quick off the mark, a great attacker. But Reed Marnie, I believe, will bring the mongrel and the passion that perhaps the Cowboys lacked last year. I felt that they got bullied, and at times they gave up through games, and at times they were happy to be bullied. And I feel like Reed Marnie will not accept that. He will not. He will not put up with that from any other side or any other player. He will be getting in the faces of opposition players. And if I was versing Reed Marnie, I'd absolutely hate to play him because I reckon I'd have to control my emotions because he'd get to me. I genuinely believe that. I mean, look what he did in 2019. I think it was Cameron Smith. No one got to Cameron Smith. He was so cool, calm, and collected. Yet Reed Marnie got in the face of Cameron Smith, made him react, and Smith ended up in the sin bin. So Reed Marnie has this really extraordinary yet unbelievable attribute of getting in people's faces and doing what they, he will not tolerate being bullied, and that's what the Cowboys need. So I think that in itself, apart from his amazing playing ability, will be huge. Me personally, I cannot understand why the Canterbury Bulldogs got rid of him. He was there for 3 years. He was actually captain alongside Matt Burton in 2023, which was Cameron Serrato's first year at the Bulldogs. 2024, he had a great year. 2025, I thought he had a good year as well. I sure he struggled some games, but at the end of the day, they've got a plan in place, Canterbury. They obviously know what they're doing because what's going on there is working. But I just felt like Reed Marnie was pretty hard done by. That's just my opinion. The Knights, really intriguing to see where Dylan Brown will play. For me, he's a 6, and that was shown in the Pacific Championships. But let's not get too carried away by that either, because if you look in that New Zealand side, they had some phenomenal front rowers. If you look at this Newcastle side, who have they got apart from Jacob Saifidi? I think they've got a young bloke called Corey Hopwood coming through, or Cody Hopwood. But like, no disrespect to Brodie Jones and some of those younger players coming through, but they're not elite front rowers that Newcastle desperately need. Jack Hetherington is now gone to Melbourne. Sure, he wasn't elite, but he could do a job. And he was a very good impact player when he came on from the bench. Why they let go of Leo Thompson, I don't know. For me, that they're really going to struggle Newcastle in 2026 based on not Justin Holbrook's coaching, because at the end of the day, this isn't his roster. So he will do what he can in 2026. And I think his priority this year is to try and connect the community and the club together and focus on the junior pathways at Newcastle, which is really exciting if you're a Newcastle Knights fan. But I genuinely believe that the Newcastle Knights will struggle, and I think they'll struggle in this game. Personally, what are they going to do? I think they're probably going to go Fletcher Sharp 6 and Dylan Brown 7, but Dylan Brown, I think, is a 6. We saw him play 7 for Parramatta a lot last year, early on in the year when Mitchell Moses was out injured for that opening month of the season. He struggled. And if you remember that game against Melbourne in round 1, Dylan Brown was nowhere to be seen. He was the halfback. He was trying to lead the side around. He didn't want the ball. So he's not a 7, he's a 6. He's a crafty 6. And whether or not you put Fletcher Sharp at 7, I don't know. I know Fletcher Sharp grew up playing in the halves, whether that was at 5'8" or halfback, I'm not too sure. But I believe the Cowboys will win this and will win this really well. They struggled last year. I reckon Kyle Felt was a huge loss. Sure, he's not the talent of Robert Derby in terms of the speed, the skill, the footwork, the agility, the strength. But what he is he was consistent for the Cowboys. You knew what you were going to get out of Kyle Felt, and that was at least a 7 or an 8 out of 10 every week. Defensively, really strong, a real leader for those outside backs to look up to him. And what he achieved in that 2015 grand final was unbelievable. He actually still had a lot of work to do in that grand final when he got the flick pass from Michael Morgan. So an incredible winger. For me, an underrated winger. He was a huge loss, but I just believe that Robert Derby will be 1 year better for last year. Just that 1 year of experience will be really important for the Cowboys outside back men. There's reports of Tom Chester, Zach Laybutt playing in the centres. There's Viliami Vailea as well. They've got some outside backs with a lot of talent, but for me, the Cowboys need to fix up their defence. That is their priority, and I've got no doubt in their off season that their defence will improve. That's what pretty much I reckon all they'll be working on in terms of number one priority is their defence. The Bulldogs and the Dragons are the second game in Vegas. The Dragons, I don't know where I see them in 2026. For me, they're not in the top eight, but there's huge concerns. But there's also a lot of bright. There's light at the end of the tunnel as well. You've got young guns, Hamish Stewart coming through, the Couchman brothers. I thought Damien Cook last year didn't get the raps he deserved in that number 9 position. Jacob Little was outstanding last year. So you've got some really good things happening at the Dragons. Of course, they've just signed Keon Kalamatangi. He will arrive there in 2027. So there are some shining lights coming through. But against this Bulldogs side, I just can't see them winning this game in Vegas. I just think, for me, the Dragons they're obviously still a big brand. But if you can remember 10 to 15 years ago, they were such an attractive club. They were making the finals consistently. Players like Jamie Soward, Ben Hornby, Brett Morris, Mark Gasnier, Matt Cooper, Ben Cray, Matt Pryor. Like, they just had a gun side for so long. And they were just an attractive club. For me, in my opinion, anymore, they're not an attractive club anymore, based on the fact that Souths were happy to let Damien Cook go to the Dragons. Clint Gutherson, Parramatta were happy to let Clint Gutherson go. Those boys didn't have overly many options to choose from, so they did end up at the Dragons. I think Shane Flanagan's a really good coach. I really do. I'd love to see the Dragons do well in 2026, but I do think they're probably another couple of years away from becoming a consistent finals side. Hamish Stewart is he's someone to watch in 2026, and I hope he plays in the trials or at least one of them, because I just want to see more of what he can offer in that number 13 jersey. And there's just so much coming through at the Dragons. It's going to be really interesting to see which direction they go in the halves. I know the Dragons have already come out and said that Daniel Atkinson will start in the 7 jersey. That's really intriguing. And Kyle Flanagan will start in the 6. I'd like to see King Tongia come off the bench, because I thought he did a pretty decent job for the Dragons last year in that number 7 jersey when Lachlan Ilias was dropped. So he's a young talent coming through the ranks as well. I'd love to see him start in that 17 jersey as well. The Thursday night, which will be the following week. So Sunday, 1st of March, will be the Knights and the Cowboys. I've got the Cowboys winning that big, and I've got the Bulldogs and the Dragons, and I've got the Bulldogs winning that by a big margin as well. Thursday night football will be the following week. So this will be 5 days later. The Melbourne Storm and the Parramatta Eels. I'm going to go the Melbourne Storm based on I think they've won every single round 1 game since 2003. They absolutely belted the Parramatta Eels in season 2025 in round 1. And I just think the Melbourne Storm at Amy Park against Parramatta, who are still building a new halves combination of Jonah Pezzett and Mitchell Moses, I think they are going to be the team to beat in 2026. For me personally, if you've listened to my prediction episode yesterday on Spotify, I mentioned that the Melbourne Storm, I think, will be winning the premiership in 2026, and that will send Craig Bellamy off as a premiership winning coach for his 4th premiership and his final game in coaching for the Melbourne Storm. I think this might be his last year, and I can just see that him winning a premiership in his last game of coaching, having a farewell that Cameron Smith did as well. It's going to be a really intriguing game. Sua Fa'alago will probably start fullback. Don't be surprised if Nick Meaney starts fullback against that game and they ease Sua Fa'alago into that position. But I think Fa'alago has waited long enough. He's been in the Melbourne system since he's been a kid. He's a Victorian-born man. He wants to play for Melbourne. for a very, very long time, and that number one jersey is up for grabs. For me personally, he will get that number one jersey, and he will become the superstar that we all know of. But he will be seen more as a superstar this time next year. He will be consistently great, and I think he will be one of the big stories and players to talk about in season 2026. Storm to win that big on the Thursday night